But for this first one, man, I have to talk about how abysmal the refs were, man.
When that foul took place, CBS said she's got a challenge left. Well, it didn't matter. She couldn't use it.
One of the weirdest, I'm not even going to say it was badly refereed until down the stretch, but it was one of the worst referee games I've seen in a long, long time, especially down the stretch.
The outrage wasn't just about a missed call. It was about a system that seemed rigged to silence the most watched team in the WNBA. When the Indiana Fever lost a nail-biter to the New York Liberty, it wasn't the scoreboard that had fans furious. It was the officiating, the silence, and the baffling technicalities that turned a winnable game into a spectacle of controversy.
But the thing is, I always say with the fouls, it's fine to not call these fouls if you're going to call it physical both ways, but it's touch fouls on the Fever and physical against Fever.
One of the things that happened during this whole game is the referees, for, again, the second game in a row, I guess? Definitely for the second game of the season, the referees swallowed their freaking whistles when it came to the Indiana Fever.
In the middle of the storm stood head coach Stephanie White, demanding accountability in a league that has long struggled with visibility and trust. Her post-game statements weren't just frustration, they were an indictment.
Stephanie White is there talking about the referees?
And Stephanie White has lost her mind over it, and I don't blame her. I mean, at least she's standing up for the team, making it a public issue, so now the WNBA is at least on notice that everybody knows it now, that this team is not getting any calls.
As much as I don't think Stephanie White's done a particularly good job of coaching basketball when it comes to the Fever so far. At least she's been good with the media. At least she's good in press conferences.
A -31 free throw differential over a handful of games. Superstar rookie Caitlin Clark getting slammed without a whistle. Miscommunication from networks. And above all, a public starting to question whether this league even knows what it has in front of them.
Caitlin Clark got fouled about 4 times before the ball was stripped cleanly.
Just really quick, man. There's no way you have the Liberty shooting 32 free throw attempts and the Indiana Fever shooting 15 free throw attempts in this game, fam, and are able to say the refs weren't one-sided.
Don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into stories the mainstream sports world won't touch. Comment free throw fallout if this game raised more questions than answers. The closing seconds of Indiana's clash with New York should have come down to strategy, execution, and maybe a last-minute hero. Instead, it unraveled into a moment that exposed a critical loophole in the WNBA's game: operations.
Let's take a look at the last play, right? You had Sabrina coming down off of a layup where she just fallen. Now, if you wanted to call that a foul, fine. But what happened with Caitlin Clark? Doing the same fall, she's falling just like that, but no call. No call at all when she's falling just like that.
As Sabrina Ionescu drove to the basket and drew a foul on Lexi Hall, the Liberty star stepped to the line for what would become the game-winning free throws. Viewers expected Indiana head coach Stephanie White to challenge the call. After all, the CBS broadcast had stated she had one challenge left.
Stephanie White could not challenge that foul call on Lexi Hall, the one that led to the game-winning free throws from Sabrina Ionescu, because she didn't have a timeout.
What followed wasn't a missed opportunity. It was a rules trap that not even the broadcasters seemed to understand. White did indeed have a challenge remaining, but not the one thing needed to activate it: a full timeout. Reset timeouts don't count. Without a full timeout, the challenge became unusable, turning the broadcast's confident claim into a cruel red herring.
You need a full timeout, not a reset timeout, to initiate the challenge. My issue with that is it would have been nice if the CBS announcers hadn't even brought up the challenge. Well, why bring it up if she couldn't actually make one?
Fans watching were led to believe White had simply chosen not to act. In reality, her hands were tied by an obscure rule we're even aware of. And in that moment, what should have been a tight coaching decision turned into a technical failure that shifted public scrutiny from the court to the scorer's table. The miscommunication surrounding the unused challenge quickly became a lightning rod for criticism, not just against Stephanie White, but the entire infrastructure supporting WNBA broadcasts.
Well, we got a couple things, both involving Stephanie White. I guess in one case, it sort of lets her off the hook for not having challenged the foul on Lexi Hall on the drive into the basket by Sabrina Ionescu that allowed her to shoot the free throws that essentially clinched the ball game. That does no good if she doesn't have the ability to actually use it.
When CBS confidently declared that White had a challenge remaining, it set off a narrative that she froze under pressure or failed her team in a decisive moment. Social media erupted with posts calling out her game management and questioning her leadership. But as the truth emerged that a full timeout was required to trigger the challenge, the tone shifted.
One of the things that's going on social media right now as we speak is the WNBA referees are getting destroyed. And I mean, they are getting crushed online.
The criticism pivoted from coaching decisions to broadcasting credibility and league protocol. If CBS didn't understand the rules, what chance did casual viewers have? The real damage wasn't just a blown perception of White's tactics. It was the erosion of trust in how information is relayed during live games.
Does this sort of help? Yeah, I guess it does. Even though there was some real coaching deficiencies today.
The gap between what fans saw and what was actually happening on the floor cast a spotlight on the league's fragile communication systems. In a game watched by over 1 million people, clarity was sacrificed in real time, and it changed the narrative completely. Instead of discussing clutch plays, the post-game discourse fixated on confusion, frustration, and a preventable misunderstanding that never should have made it past the broadcast booth.
Got the coach out there saying that it's egregious, that the foul situation is egregious.
Indiana Fever head coach Stephanie White asserted that she thought the referees missed the call when speaking to the media. So here we go right here. She lays into the WNBA referees.
I thought she got fouled. I think it's pretty egregious what's been happening to us the last few games. A minus 31 free throw discrepancy. And I might be able to understand it if we were just chucking threes, but we're not. We're attacking the rim. And the disrespect right now for our team has been pretty unbelievable. So it's disappointing, that it doesn't go both ways, or it hasn't gone both ways.
With just seconds left on the clock and the Fever trailing by 2, the ball found its way to Caitlin Clark, positioned just above the free throw line. The rookie phenom, already the center of media and fan attention, rose to take a potentially game-tying shot. But before her release, Liberty guard Natasha Cloud reached in and stripped the ball clean. No whistle, no foul, no chance for free throws.
And Natasha Cloud.
Right there was the foul on what should have been a foul call on Natasha Cloud, and it didn't happen.
A replay showed Cloud pushing Clark in the shoulder the moment the ball came loose. Look, Natasha Cloud fouled Caitlin Clark. No, there's no need to overcomplicate it. Natasha Cloud fouled Caitlin Clark. That is a call that in the end stopped them having a chance.
The Liberty secured possession and walked away with the win. What should have been the highlight of the night, Clark with the game on the line, was instead the spark for a new wave of outrage. Stephanie White didn't mince words in the post-game press conference, stating outright that Clark was fouled and calling the moment egregious.
After 2 consecutive possessions where a foul call could have been done either way against the Fever, which ended up with the Liberty having a 2-point lead, Caitlin Clark got an inbound right above the free throw line and went up for a shot while being guarded by Liberty standout Natasha Cloud. Cloud ultimately ripped the ball away from Clark, securing New York's victory.
Her tone wasn't just frustration, it was disbelief. White highlighted a shocking minus 31 free throw differential in recent games, noting that despite her team's commitment to attacking the basket, they weren't getting calls. The implication was clear. Something was broken in how games were being officiated. The most visible star in women's basketball wasn't just getting disrespected, she was being ignored by the whistle.
The fouls were crazy. The free throw attempts were crazy.
When it comes to Caitlin Clark, she's not particularly happy either about the refs. And the referees are they're screwing her. They're absolutely screwing her, and they've screwed her for 3 games in a row. It's laughable. It is absolutely laughable, some of the stuff.
And for fans and analysts watching in real time, it didn't feel like oversight. It felt like neglect, plain and simple. Stephanie White's post-game commentary marked a turning point, not just for her team, but for how the entire WNBA officiating system is being perceived. Her frustration wasn't limited to one missed call. It was the culmination of multiple games where the Fever aggressively attacked the paint and consistently came up empty at the line.
No call, and everybody's getting, I don't want to say everybody's getting used to it, but it seems like everybody's getting used to there not being any calls.
Obviously, Caitlin Clark's pissed. The whole team are pissed. It's been 3 games in a row where the referees have had a huge effect on how the game is played. 2 of the 3 referees have had a big effect on how the game ended.
Here we go. The final score was not a controversy. There were several questionable calls at the end of the contest, that the Fever community is claiming was mishandled by game referees.
This wasn't a team settling for deepies or passive play. White emphasized that her squad was initiating contact, driving hard, and playing with physical intent, yet referees continued to look the other way. That detail struck a chord with fans, especially those who had tracked the Fever's trend of low free throw counts despite their aggressive style. Even more damning was the tone in White's voice, less emotional outburst and more calculated indictment of how the league enforces fairness.
At least Stephanie White came out for her team.
But we also can't allow that to consume us, right? Like, we've got to be able to play through that. We've got to be able to control the things that we can control.
It's okay to show your ass out there. Your team sees that. Your fans see that. Fire the crowd up. Let's go.
The question hanging in the air wasn't just whether one game was poorly officiated, but whether the league was choosing to look away while it happened. For a sport still fighting to expand its audience, ignoring the competitive integrity of its most watched team isn't just risky, it's self-sabotage. And with each questionable no call, the WNBA inches closer to a legitimacy crisis it might not be able to walk back from.
I'm the type of person who always say, you should not put the ball or put the game in the ref's hands.
Yeah, when it comes to accepting, it's like we don't really have a choice because they're going to call what they want to call. And so for us, I mean, even for me, I miss some of those easy around the rim. I think for me, I have to put them in the rim for just post talk.
Like, look, Aaliyah's right with that. Aaliyah is 100% right with that. They shouldn't have to be sitting there like, you know what, we have to just accept the referees.
The frustration didn't end on the court or in post-game interviews, extended to the very system that's supposed to keep officiating accountable. Stephanie White pulled back the curtain on what happens behind the scenes when teams believe they've been wrong. There is, she explained, a process to file grievances and submit footage for review. But she didn't mince words. She no longer trusts that process.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a system, making sure that we can send stuff in and communicate, our grievances, so to speak.
In her words, I don't know that I ever feel like the system works. That admission, coming from a head coach, was a damning critique of the league's internal review mechanisms. It wasn't a demand for favoritism.
I don't know that I ever feel like the system works. It's not looking for a change, we're just looking for consistency.
White wasn't asking for special treatment or a rule book rewrite. She was asking for consistency, a baseline level of fairness that allows teams to understand what to expect from officiating night after night. The reality, she suggested, is a league where consistency is the exception, not the standard.
I felt like the second half of Atlanta, at least at our place, was at least consistent. That's the thing that we're looking for.
This isn't just about one game or even a string of bad calls. It's about systemic breakdowns that leave players confused, fans angry, and coaches powerless. Without a functioning framework to address officiating errors, the WNBA risks turning passionate competition into a chaotic free-for-all, where outcomes feel less decided by performance and more by whatever interpretation of the rules wins out on any given night. The backlash against WNBA officiating didn't stay confined to Indiana fans. It exploded across social media, national forums, and even crossover sports communities. The referees were getting torched online. Accusations ranged from incompetence to bias, with some fans outright questioning whether officials were even fit to handle the rising visibility the league now commands. Posts flooded Twitter and Reddit, calling the referees the worst in professional sports. Comparisons to the NFL's recent officiating struggles were inevitable, but the WNBA's issues seemed to cut deep, not just because of the frequency of errors, but because of what was at stake. These aren't anonymous Tuesday games. They're high-visibility matchups, pulling in millions of new viewers. The Fever are becoming appointment television, and when officiating falls apart on that stage, the damage ripples far beyond the final buzzer. Every missed call isn't just a hiccup, it's a dent in the league's credibility. The narrative forming isn't simply that the referees are bad, it's that the league doesn't seem ready for the audience it's finally getting. And with every nationally televised debacle, the spotlight gets hotter, the critics louder, and the tolerance for mistakes thinner. Caitlin Clark isn't just a top rookie, she's the most visible figure in the modern WNBA era. Her arrival has triggered a ratings explosion, sold-out arenas, and national headlines with every appearance. Yet despite her unprecedented impact, Clark isn't receiving the kind of treatment usually reserved for a franchise centerpiece, let alone the player single-handedly elevating the league's profile. In pivotal moments, she's being hit, grabbed, stripped, and outright leveled on plays that would draw whistles for far less celebrated stars. The discrepancy isn't just strange, it's baffling. Sports history is full of examples where league icons were protected. Michael Jordan got calls others, so did Tom Brady. Superstars have always operated under a slightly different rulebook because leagues knew the stakes were bigger when the spotlight was on them. But in Clark's case, the opposite seems to be happening. She's absorbing contact with no foul, dealing with relentless physicality, and rarely sees the whistle go her way. What makes it worse is the silence surrounding. No official clarifications. No public support from a league. The message being received by fans is simple. The WNBA is either unwilling or unprepared to protect its most valuable asset. And every missed call only reinforces that perception. In a league often accused of playing it safe, Stephanie White's decision to speak out publicly marked a rare moment of defiance from within the system. Her press conference wasn't just emotional venting. It was a calculated, necessary stand for her players, her team, and the integrity of the game itself. By calling out the officiating, the free throw disparity, and the broken grievance process, White did what few coaches in any sport are willing to do. She risked league pushback to defend what she believed was right. That kind of leadership doesn't always show up in stat sheets, but it resonates deeply with fans and players alike. Her voice gave legitimacy to the frustration bubbling across the country. It shifted the tone from isolated complaints to a collective call for reform. It told the Fever players that their effort was seen, that their battles were valid, and that someone in power was refusing to stay silent. Whether or not the league acts, White's stance will be remembered, because in that moment, under the weight of scrutiny, fatigue, and a mounting pile of missed calls, she didn't back down. She lit a fire that will burn long after the final buzzer, and the WNBA's response may very well shape its reputation for seasons to come.